Om Sri Sai Ram. Jnana Vahini, Chapter-06. Highest spiritual wisdom is Brahman. Many people argue that spiritual wisdom, Jnana, is one of the attributes of Brahman, that it is of the nature of Brahman, a characteristic of Brahman, etc. But such opinions arise only in the absence of actual experience, of actual attainment of spiritual wisdom. Arguments and discussions multiply when there is no first-hand experience. For the realization of reality is individual, based on revelation to oneself. I declare that experiential knowledge, Jnana, is Brahman, not a mere characteristic or attribute or quality of Brahman. The Vedas and spiritual texts, Shastras, announce that Brahman is truth, Satyam, knowledge, Jnanam, and bliss, Anandam. Not that Brahman has these and other attributes. When Brahman is known, the knower, the known, and the knowledge all become one. Indeed, Brahman cannot be described as such and such. That is why it is referred to as just it is or being Sat. Spiritual wisdom is also just being, no more or no less. The sacred revelations, Srutis, use the word Vijnana Ghana to indicate Brahman, right? That word means the sum and substance of the highest knowledge, Vijnana, knowledge with a capital K. Only those who are unaware of the sacred revelations will assert that spiritual wisdom and Brahman are distinct. Spiritual wisdom is Brahman, distinction is impossible. It is a sign of ignorance to post a difference. All knowledge that is limited by the three qualities gunas is ignorance, ajnana, not the spiritual wisdom of the transcendental, which is above and behind the ignorant, tamasic, passionate, rajasic, and even the serene, sattvic motives, impulses, and qualities. How can such limited knowledge be spiritual wisdom? Knowledge of the transcendental has to be transcendental too, in an equal measure and to the same degree. It might be said that Brahman has form, while spiritual wisdom, Jnana, is formless. But both are formless in the real sense of the word. The apparent form of Brahman is the result of ignorance, avidya. Form is attributed to Brahman only to serve the needs of the embodied soul during the period of the embodiment. The absolute is reduced to the level of conditioned because the soul is also conditioned in the body. Not to know that this human interlude is but the conditioned state of the Atma is to be reduced to the dullness of the beast. 19. Take up the chief path to acquire spiritual wisdom, devotion. Spiritual wisdom, Jnana, is panacea for all ills, troubles, and trivials. This is how the Vedas describe it. There are many paths to acquire this wisdom, and the chief among them is the path of devotion, bhakti, which was adopted by Vasishtha, Narada, Vyasa, Jayadeva, Gauranga, and other great people. As the oil is to the flame in the lamp, so is devotion to the flame of spiritual wisdom. The heavenly tree of joy, of wisdom, thrives on the refreshing waters of devotion. Understand this well. It is for this reason that Krishna, who is the personification of divine love, prema, and who is saturated with the quality of mercy described in the Gita, I am known by means of devotion. Bhaktya mam avijjhatante. Why was this declaration made? Because there are no hurdles in the path of devotion. Young and old, high and low, man and woman, all are entitled to tread it. Who among people are in urgent need of medical treatment? Those who are badly ill, right? So too, those who are groping in ignorance, Jnana, are first entitled to the teaching and the training leading to the acquisition of spiritual wisdom. Why feed those who have no hunger? Why drug those who are not sick? Brahman or spiritual wisdom is the drug for the derealization of the falsely realized, the removal of the fog of misunderstanding, ajnana. It will sweep away the dirt and that hides the truth. 20. Everyone can win spiritual wisdom regardless of status, class, or sex. Everyone, whatever the status, class, or sex, can win spiritual wisdom. If women are not entitled to it, why is it mentioned that Shiva taught Vedanta to Parvati? How did the great yogi Kapila Maharshi teach the Sankhya system to his mother, Devahuti? How did Yajnavalkya, the great sage Rishi, impart the essential principles of Vedantic philosophy to his wife, Maitreyi? As mentioned in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the Upanishad cannot be false. The scriptures that mention these facts speak only the truth. There is no doubt that sage Mathanga is a great ascetic. Does not the Ramayana declare that he taught the woman Shabari the secret of the sacred doctrine of Brahman? Is that statement false? Coming to this age itself, who does not know that the scholarly wife of Sureshavacharya contended with Shankaracharya himself in a philosophic discussion of Brahman? So, the chief qualification for the path leading to spiritual wisdom, jnana, is only spiritual discipline. The spiritual exercises, tapas, in which one is engaged, not the irrelevant consideration of caste, creed, or sex. Leaving all other matters aside, one should concentrate on spiritual discipline. The Lord is accessible and available to all. He is all mercy. No one except the Lord has the authority to declare anyone unfit for the discipline of spiritual wisdom. If you reflect a little deeper, you will realize that the Lord would not deny anyone the chance to reach Him. How can the flame deny refugee to sparks of the same fire? How can the sea deny refugee to drops of that sea? The Lord also will not refuse or reject. A father with 4 sons cannot state that one of them has no right to a share in his property. It would not be just or proper. Then what should be said of the Lord, who is devoid of the slightest tinge of partiality or prejudice, and who is full of mercy? To attribute favoritism to him is to commit sacrilege. Referring to this question of who is or isn't entitled to knowledge of Brahman, Brahmavidya, Krishna said in the Gita, I have no favorite, nor do I dislike anyone, whatever might be the caste, whether the person be a man or woman. Whoever worships me with faith and devotion will reach me. Nothing can stand in their way. I too will manifest in the hearts of such. Is the Gita mistaken? No, it speaks profound truth. 21. Wisdom consists of the feeling of oneness with distinction. There is another wrong belief current today. It is said that in order to be entitled to the practice of spiritual exercise for the realization of Brahman, like prayerful repetition of the name, japa, and meditation, dhyana, one must adhere strictly to certain modes of daily conduct laid down in tradition and thus attain purity. I don't agree. As an analogy, should a forbidden person have to take a course on medicine before being allowed to take medicines. To require a person to be pure and good and to follow certain codes of conduct before treading the path of God is to say that someone must be free from disease in order to deserve medical treatment. How absurd! Purity, goodness, etc. are all consequences of the journey toward God. They cannot be insisted upon as essential for starting upon the path. The taking in of the drug will gradually induce health and cheer. Health and cheer should not be insisted upon before the drug is even prescribed or supplied. This obvious fact is ignored by many. That is a serious malady indeed. All those suffering from the malady of ignorance, Jnana, must read and ponder over the books dealing with the treatment of that disease, namely the experiences of the great elders in the field of spiritual endeavor. Only then can they understand the real state of things. One other secret of success has to be kept in mind. Every course of medical treatment involves some regulation and restriction of diet, movements, habits, and conduct. These should not be neglected or taken lightly. In fact, if the doctor's advice on these matters is not strictly followed, even the costliest or latest or most efficacious medicine will be ineffective. Consider the people who underwent the treatment, drugs, restrictions, limitations, and all, and successfully emerged from the sick room hale and be happy. They are all castes, ages, and of both sexes. Vasistha was born of a public woman. Narada's mother was a washerwoman. Valmiki belonged to the hunter caste. Vishwamitra was a warrior, Kshatriya. Matanga was a member of the depressed classes. The influence is that what is important enough is constant meditation on the Lord, not the labels of caste or creed. Wisdom, Jnana, is the attainment of the feeling of oneness, the realization that there is nothing high or low. That is the true divine principle, the Brahman. A sugar doll has head, neck, arms, and limbs, but each part is as sweet as the other. From head to foot, it is one uniform sweetness. There cannot be two types of sweetness. That is why it is said to be not dual, Dvaita, but non-dual, Advaita. Those who emanate from the Lord's face and those who emanate from his feet are both his children. The realization of this truth is the sign of wisdom, Jnana. Some trees, like the jack tree, bear fruit from the root up to the topmost branch. Does the fruit near the ground differ from the fruit on the tallest branch? No, they are all same. Or do they taste differently, like distinct fruits? Of course, among the fruits, some may be tender, some unripe, some may little ripe, and some fully ripe, and they may differ in taste too, as is only natural. But never can you find bitterness in the bottom and sweetness in the type of sourceness of the middle. Tender, green, and ripe are three stages or three characteristics. 22. Caste depends more on qualities than the birth. So too, the four castes are four characteristics, gunas. According to their nature and their activities, the four castes have been ordained like the fruits on the same tree, some tender, some green, some ripe. Men are classified into four groups according to their stage of development, which is judged from their actions and character. Those in whose thoughts and behavior the pure quality Sattva Guna predominates are grouped as Brahmins, who are progressing along the path toward Brahman. Those in whom the active quality Rajoguna is dominant are referred to as the protectors or various Kshatriyas. Thus, the scriptures, Shastras, have spoken of ingrained qualities as the basis of caste, not otherwise. Why? The Gita itself proclaims that the four castes have been established by the Lord, taking into consideration the dominance of any of the three qualities gunas and the practice of actions karmas like repetition of the name, japa, meditation, dhyana, and other disciplinary duties. Although born as a laborer, Shudra, a person does attain Brahmanhood through the struggle toward Brahman and spiritual exercise. Although born as a Brahmin, if that ideal and the effort to attain it is not found, one becomes a laborer. Good conduct, anusthana, and strict discipline, nishta, are the criteria, the deciding factor. The inner Atmic principle is the same in all. It knows no caste or class or conflict. 23. Accept the rigors of spiritual discipline and follow the path of devotion to realize that the self is behind all these lesser categories. Devotion, bhakti, is the first requisite. Devotion merges in wisdom, jnana, and becomes identified with it. Devotion ripens into wisdom. So don't speak of them as different. At one stage it is called devotion, at later stage wisdom. Once it is cane, later it is sugar. Through devotion, the individual soul, jiva, is transformed into Shiva, or rather it knows it is Shiva and the soul idea disappears. To posit oneself as a soul is ignorance, ajnana. To know oneself as Shiva is spiritual wisdom. Jai Sai Ram.